Jason Lucas, him and I met. This is okay. So this is how crazy the world is. When people say that things don't come full circle, it is a lie. So things come full circle. Listen, I hang on to all the things I love, right? Vinyl records came back, Oshkosh came back, and when the fanny pack came back, I was like, there is nothing in this world that won't come back. If the fanny pack can be in this world twice in two different periods with different generations of people, if the fanny pack made it back, then anybody can make it back. That's how I look at it. So Jason Lucas here with me, and we are here to talk about something that made it back in a very unique and interesting way. We met back in the day, 2009-ish, when the UFL, the United Football League, when there was just a few teams and a lot of people weren't covering it, it wasn't respected the way that I think it should have been, and the Florida Tuskers were playing in Orlando at the Citrus Bowl, which is now home to the Cheez-It Bowl, the Pop-Tart Bowl is what it's called now. It's just insane. But we were at the Citrus Bowl, the United Football League, the Florida Tuskers were there, and that's how Jason and I met. Jason was working in the front office. I, of course, being a broadcaster and a journalist, said, I want to go out and cover this team. I don't care who's covering this team. I want to cover this team, and I want to show them that I'm going to be the best person covering this team, build relationships, and do what I always do. And Jason gave me the opportunity to come in. We became friends because we met through the UFL and the Florida Tuskers. So we can thank the old iteration of the United Football League for us meeting. Now, all of these years later that we've known each other for, let me think here. So 2009 to 2023, 14 years, going on 15 years of knowing each other. And 15 years later, the United Football League is back from the UFL or USFL and the XFL merging. I know this is a long intro, but go with me one more second on this, Jay Bird. The XFL has been here 3 times. The USFL has been here at least twice. And with the USFL and the XFL coming together and merging, they form the UFL, and people go, oh, okay, that's what they're going to call their league? No, it is the second iteration of the UFL. So a league that came back and a league that came back bonding together created a league that is now coming back in its own iteration, and that's how crazy the sports world is, and that, folks, is the fanny pack in the sports world. Jason, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm, just hanging out in Orlando, Florida, where we got left off the docket for the new UFL. So kind of feeling a little left out, to be honest. There was maybe some jobs to be had in this area, I was hoping, but I guess not.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest problem with the UFL in this merger of the XFL and the USFL is that the XFL had a good number of teams, USFL had a good number of teams, and they came together and deleted franchises. And I guess maybe the mentality is, let's just hone in on a small number and let's get this right, and then let's expand. Let's keep some of these cities that we had in the USFL and the XFL on watch. But what I don't get is the USFL has played for a few seasons now and proved that they can stick around. The XFL came back twice in the last decade and proven that there's something there. So if you're going to merge the XFL and the USFL, why delete? If you're going to be merging, then say, well, you take what you got and I'll take what I got. Let's make this thing come together. That was probably the biggest surprise of the UFL, is that they deleted some of the current USFL and XFL teams.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, trouble finding ownership and finding the money to run all the teams. So they probably had to go with a model that they thought was most cost effective for them. And it ended up leaving out, to me, one of the best markets was here in Orlando. It was a lot of fun, and it was coming around. The crowds were starting to get bigger, even though the team wasn't very good. They started to get better toward the end of the season. And, obviously it leaves, the coaches without a job, the players fighting to be in that draft that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Just very tough times for those guys. I mean, I got to speak to a few of them here and there, and they were completely left in the dark as to what was going on. And even you wondered if The Rock and Danny were even still going to be a part of it. And they are, thankfully, they're still a part of it. So there's a lot of money behind it. But you did leave a lot of these fans, players, coaches kind of out looking for jobs now and scrambling to try to figure out what they were going to do when you said you were going to be here for years.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think, the issue, you and I both know Orlando. And Orlando it's the amusement capital of the world. Has Disney lost its mind? Yeah, pretty much. And have they lost billions of dollars in the losing of their mind? Yeah. And will they ever get it back? Well, eventually, because money talks. And when people can't do the right thing the first time, sometimes people do the right thing when they lose money. So Disney might get better. Universal's kicking some tail, though. I haven't been to Universal in a hot minute, and I went with my dad in December. And, I have a neck injury that I'm coming back from, which sucks in the fact that, like, this is me. This is 38-year-old me in my response. When I'm like, okay, I got a neck injury, I'll deal with it. And then my mom's like, well, you can't go on any roller coasters because you have a neck injury. And I was like, son of a b. I can't go on a roller for the first time since I was 10 years old. 28 years of riding roller coasters. And I can't go on a roller coaster, so I didn't go on a roller coaster, but I went to Universal with my dad. And we had a really nice time. And for the first time in my entire life, I went to Universal, I went to Disney in the same trip, first time since I was like 7 or 8 years old. And for the first time in my entire life, I looked at my dad and I go, Disney's effing up. Like, they're screwing up here, man. Like, I want to go back to Universal. I didn't want to be at Disney. And people that know me, and you probably thinking this in your head right now, when I tell you that something is better than Disney to me, people are like, oh, Disney screwed up. So, but like,
yeah, that's not good.
it's this is the amusement capital of the country, maybe the world. So why the UFL, who had a franchise, as I talked about in the intro, had a franchise, the Florida Tuskers, why they wouldn't want to come back? They got a stadium right there, the Camping World Stadium, whatever the hell it's called at this point. But it's all right there for you, right there for the taking. Jay Bird, I wanted to have you on here because it had been too long, but I also wanted to have you on because you and I, we met through the UFL. If the last iteration of the UFL had the Florida Tuskers, this has to be surprising to you that with a stadium and with the amusement capital of the country, maybe the world, like I said, with fans just yearning for stuff, the Pro Bowl has been there multiple times. It just seems a little confusing why the UFL wouldn't want to holler at Orlando.
Yeah, no, I think I'm as surprised as anybody because, of course, they were building up for the season here in Orlando, talking about the Guardian season coming up. Coach Terrell Buckley in his second year didn't get fired after only one win last season. Yeah. So we were looking forward. We saw the team getting a little better toward the end of last season, and the crowd started getting a little better too toward the end of the season. And to leave them out, I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me to leave them out. I thought they were, as somebody who met with a lot of the XFL franchises last season in different ways, like they were ran super professionally from top to bottom. Everything we had when we took Jessley there for the anthem, I mean, everything was ran like you were at an NFL game. I mean, there was almost no difference between what they were doing and what the NFL does when you're dealing with them. So it really was surprising to leave them out. I mean, they were, like I said, just ran so well. The marketing was good. Everybody had a good time out there that did make it. They had different ways to get free tickets. So, the season tickets were super affordable if you wanted to do that. It makes no sense to me to not be here and to be like, oh, we're going to put you on pause. And knowing that in the football world, when you put something on pause and you try to bring it back,
yeah,
then it just kind of limps back and nobody even knows about it until it's 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, and that's,
if ever.
That's the hardest part, right? I mean, the thing is, when you put it on pause, when you put anything on pause, right? If you're dating somebody and you say, pause, I'll come back to you, I'm going to go do a couple things. It's hard to have that relationship, come back. If you put if I put my show on pause, then all of the people that have been listening for months and years and this, that, whatever, and watching, you're not necessarily going to get all those people back. If you put your cereal on pause and you step away for a second, it becomes a soggy mess. And that's really what I look at when I look at this stuff is every time something other than the NFL tries to come back into the league or tries to come in or come back in when the USFL was here and then it left and then it came back and then you had NFL Europe and it was there and then it's gone and it's like how do you bring it back? And you look at the XFL doing that. The XFL's in, it's out, it's in, it's out again, it comes back in. The UFL's been out forever. Now it's the bonding of these two leagues, which is really kind of ironic and crazy. But I mean, essentially, when a league leaves and tries to come back, it's soggy cereal. I mean, it's this world of like, because what fans start to believe after a while, right, is that if it was good and it was set up the right way and it was making enough money and there was a good plan and there was enough viewership and whatever, whether it's right or wrong, the mentality of people is if it's good, it stays. If it keeps coming and going and coming and going and coming and going, it means that it's not a strong product. It's not a viable product. It doesn't have a good foundation. People don't want to keep watching something for 3 years and then it leaves and then it comes back and then it leaves and then it comes back as a different team. Would you be a fan of the Dallas Cowboys if every 4 years they took a 3-year break? You know what I mean? It's like they play for 4, they take 3 off. They come back for 4, they take 3 off. Then they come back as the Dallas Stampede. Then they leave. Then they come back as the Cowboys. Then they leave. They come back as the Dallas Bobcats, and that makes no sense to anybody. And then they leave and they come back again. It just, I feel like the XFL had something going. I thought they had something going the second time, and then for whatever reason. By the way, I won an XFL fantasy football championship in my first ever time playing XFL fantasy. And that was pre-Rock. That was pre-The Rock. So,
right.
I can say that I am the eternal champion of the second XFL. So when that came back the second time, I thought, okay, there's some good things. And then it's gone. And then it comes back and The Rock is behind it. And I'm like, okay, this is great. And they're going to make a deal with the NFL and maybe be a little farm system, and that's great. Then the USFL came on, and I said, okay, cool, more football. Then they lasted 3 years, and I said, wow, this is amazing that they found a way to come back, and they brought back the old logo. Now they're both doing it. Now there are 3 options for a professional player in America. There's a 4th option in the CFL. This is so great. There's going to be 4 leagues now. They finally figured out a way for it to work. And then they condensed 2 leagues into one, called it a league that used to be in the UFL. And now there's less opportunity because now 2 leagues have gone into 1 league and deleted franchises. So now we're back to a 3-party system and not what could have been at least, 4 or 5 if the UFL tried to do its own thing. So, I mean, is this good or is this bad for football, Jay Bird? Because it looked like the XFL and the USFL were getting some footing here and starting to maybe not just walk a little bit, but starting to jog, maybe run at some point. And now they've literally just gone into a funnel, and whatever came out is the UFL.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's all, about the money. It's about, obviously they have a TV deal. I have no idea what the numbers are on that, but it's just got to do with the money. And at the end of the day, the operation costs of 50 active players, 6 guys on the practice squad, coaching staffs of 10 to 15 coaches. You have your front office staff, everything that you have to pay. They have to make those decisions. And unfortunately, you're leaving out some of the best markets. You're leaving out some of the best fans and, like, hey, a beer snake and maybe 10,000. 12,000 people. So, they just kind of went with what they could, and the smaller markets that I think really kept things in-house and in the city as far as their hirings and all that stuff, they decided to keep those markets. And it cuts down on the opportunities for the players and for the coaches. Terrell Buckley here in Orlando is out of a job. His whole staff probably out of a job as well. I haven't heard of any of them getting hired in other markets yet. So, it just makes it rough for the players and that are just trying to hang on because they just want to get to the NFL. That's all they want to do
Yeah.
is find a way to the next level.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's like for us it's nostalgic, but it's nostalgic that we both worked with the. It's just weird how like the UFL of all of the leagues got the least amount of respect, and now the UFL is second to the NFL. So it's like they went away long enough for two other leagues to come back, spend all this money. The UFL didn't have to spend a penny, and then these two leagues go, hey, let's take all of our resources, pool them together, join together, and then call ourselves the United Football League. And I just, what was your reaction? Because my reaction was like, that was like the best business plan ever. Play a couple seasons, stop playing, don't do anything for a decade, over a decade, wait, and let two other leagues spend all the money, get all the resources, and then call themselves you. So in the world of you and I that know the United Football League and what it used to be, you folded, had to pay no cash, had to do nothing for over a decade's time, and now your name is back and you're getting all the credit for all the work of these other leagues. How insane of a business plan is that, United Football League?
I should mention that back when I worked in the league, we weren't allowed to talk to you media folks about, not knowing who exactly was paying for the private planes to Sacramento and Vegas and Hartford and
Yeah.
Omaha. We weren't exactly allowed to talk about, who was paying the bills because we didn't know. And, I mean, I think Orlando was staying at Rose and Shingle Creek, which is like probably the top 5 hotel in this area. We don't know who was paying for any of that. So it was kind of just the name of the league they brought back, I guess. No like person was actually behind it. Like we had, I know you're still friends with Joe Theismann. He was just kind of there.
Yeah.
He wasn't really like, to my knowledge, he wasn't paying any bills or, doing anything. They were just like president of operations.
Well, and then there's that day when Doug Flutie came in, and I was like, is Flutie part of the team? And they're like, no. And I was like, why is he here? They're like, because he is. You want to talk to him? I was like, well, yeah, But I mean, it's just it's
he was
just
a color commentator.
What'd you say?
He was a color commentator for the TV.
Yeah, So I mean, you have this. It's just, to me, you and I have such a connection to the UFL, and like I said, it's how we met. And I don't know if anybody else can say this. Did you meet one of your best friends that you consider a brother? Did you meet them being on a field on a very hot day going, you know what? I'm tired. Yeah, me too. Let's lay on the field and watch practice. And we're just sitting there talking about football, whatever, watching the steam rise out of the turf. Can you say that that's how your friendship started? But I mean, it's just unique, right? Is it not? I mean, I don't know if there's anybody else in the country right now that can have the conversation we're having, that it's like we knew the UFL, and as soon as they said we're merging, I was like, okay. And then it went UFL, and I went, what? I was like, I got to call Jason. This is insanity. Like this
and the logo and the website and everything that it was 13, 14 years ago.
And so, I mean, from your perspective, because you did so much work in the UFL, and I thought you kicked some tail out there. You did a tremendous job. I mean, the way that you treated me, the way that you handled business, and I'm not saying this because we're friends now. Like, we're friends now because I respected the heck out of you in the way you handled it. I wished that other people would handle things the way that you do. I still would love for athletic communications in certain places to carry themselves in a way that you do, Jason, because I don't think people understand whatever Jason's title. This is the funny thing about Jason. I didn't know his title for the Florida Tuskers because he did everything. So I don't even know what you were called. I just know that if I needed something, I called you. So, when it comes to the UFL, I mean, for you and all the work that you did in it, do you almost feel, do you feel a desire? Do you want to reach, I know there's not a team in Orlando, but do you want to reach out? Do you feel like, hey, I should call and be the, president of something, the operations of something, because you've done so much work within this? I mean, is this a happy return for you? Is this kind of like an exciting coincidence? How do you view the UFL coming back because you have so much history with it?
Man, I don't know how I'm gonna feel until I see see the league logo on the jerseys and see the teams take the field. But yeah, I mean, my job with the Tuskers was, I was enabled.
Yeah.
Dan Pearson enabled me. He was, I was his assistant. He was the PR guy. I was the PR assistant. He delegated a lot of stuff to me that let me dip my foot into everything from setting up to the press conferences to, being there to meet the internet guy and seeing how it works to even get internet set up in a stadium. I mean, the pregame shows that people watched on Versus and HD Net back in those days, those were hours of me, setting up jerseys and lockers and getting everything like ready so that the set looked great, having the players all lined up to come in for their interviews. Like that was all me back in those days. And
Yeah.
I would do almost anything to do it again. I mean, it was a lot of fun. There was nothing like, jumping on those private jets and the catered food and just all the fun that we had. I mean, not to mention you feel like, as somebody who played football growing up, you feel like you're part of the team, even though you're not taking hits. You're right there with the guys. I always felt like I needed to be on the sideline. I always felt like I wanted to be, right there and win and lose with the guys, no matter which way it went. I was always there and, ready for whatever the TV people needed, which was, that was pretty much my function during the games.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you did so much, and it was, I think the United Football League, if you are listening, or if someone is listening in connection to the United Football League, I mean, this is your president of football operations. I mean, this is the guy that should be running everything. I'm not saying this because I consider you family. I'm saying this because like you took a chance on me back in the day. I started, I professionally went out in, I mean, I consider myself a professional through college. I mean, we ran on my network and Fox and all that stuff. I started broadcasting in 2003. I started, right outside of college in 2008. I met you in 2009. You took a chance on me. You took a chance on me. You took a chance on my character, how I carried myself. You gave me the opportunity to put myself out there. Because of you, I have so many wonderful bridges now in this world of sports. So many wonderful people. You mentioned Joe Theismann. I mean, it's insane that I consider Joe a friend, but I do. I mean, when I text him
Yeah.
and shoot him a message, like he'll get back to me 99.9% of the time, and if he doesn't, then he'll get back, later on. But I mean, to text Joe and be like, "Hey Joe, can you come on the show on Wednesday?" He's like, "Not Wednesday, maybe Thursday morning." It's like it's freaking. And I remember I asked him on two separate occasions to help me out with giving to somebody. One was for someone going through cancer treatment and trying to raise money, and then I think somebody else reached out to me in like a similar thing. And it was a Friday. It was probably like 2 p.m. on a Friday. And I said to Joe, I said, "Hey, I had a friend reach out to me. If you can't, it's absolutely fine." I said, I had a friend reach out to me about asking if you could donate anything for a silent auction. They're trying to raise money for her brother's cancer treatment. And Joe got me in touch with his assistant and was like, "Let's put this together." I was like, "You could literally send a picture, whatever." I was like, "Send a football or something." He sent multiple items, including a massive jersey. And he was like, "Hey, Dan, I can't get it out till Saturday. Is it okay if it gets there Monday? I'm sorry." I was like, "Sorry about what, Joe?" Like, I mean, just a nice, really good human
Yeah.
being. And then talking to Flutie, and then still to this day, I have it on tape. John Gruden endorsed my show, and at the time, it was called the Dan Tortora Show. And John was in the parking lot of the Citrus Bowl, and he was like, "You're listening to Dan Tortora," and I was just like, "Yeah!" And so I was like, "Let's go, John." But and I said to him, I was like, I said, "Please don't," like, I kind of in a way was like, "Please don't hit me." I was like, "People think that you're really mean, but you're actually like, you're a super nice guy. You're just,
Yeah.
in the game. He's in the game, and I don't understand because players do that all the time. They become animals and they shut it off." So why can't a coach be an animal on the field and then shut it off in regular life? So, but I mean, when I saw this UFL thing, all I could think about was, if anybody can talk about this, it's you and I. And
Yeah,
it's
100%.
it's so cool and weird and insane that this is happening, but I hope that it works. And if we take a look at the teams that are going to be in this thing, there's going to be 8. We have the Arlington Renegades, formerly the Dallas Renegades, the Arlington Renegades. If anyone's been to Arlington, Fort Worth, or Dallas, which I've been to all 3, they're almost in the same place. It's like if you come to Syracuse and you're in Clay, Baldwinsville, and Liverpool at the same time. So when it's like, oh man, they left Dallas for Arlington, it's like 3 streets over. By the way, Hurtado has the best tostadas that I've ever had in my life. Shout out to the Hispanic side of my body. Arlington is where it is. So when you go to visit the Renegades, you have to go to Hurtado. And if I say their name one more time, they owe me a partnership. Hurtado. So with that being said, we look at the Arlington Renegades, the DC Defenders, the San Antonio Brahmas. This was a team that felt very Rock-esque, right? The Brahma and what he has with the bull, with Under Armour and all of that. So there's that side of it. Then there's the St. Louis. I'm so happy that they have a franchise, because I went there right after the Rams left, and there were still signs up. It literally looked like when you break up with someone and they left like a bunch of their stuff at your apartment. So the St. Louis Battlehawks, so happy that they're here. The Michigan Panthers, shout out to their kicker, my dude, Cole Murphy, played for them for many, many years, doing great stuff with them. So a big time shout out to the Michigan Panthers. And then we have the Memphis Showboats, the Houston Roughnecks, and then we have the Stallions as well. And why is it failing me where the Stallions are coming to us from? But so there's 8 franchises. They just had their draft. So
isn't that
go ahead.
The Montgomery, Alabama team? Isn't that the Montgomery, Alabama team?
Yeah,
Steins?
yeah, that could be the Stallions. Yeah, the Birmingham Stallions. There you go.
Birmingham, that's the one. Yep.
Birmingham, because I know that they've won like multiple times. So the Birmingham Stallions. So those are the 8 teams that are in the United Football League. Am I excited? Yes. I was trying to figure out who my favorite team was going to be in the USFL and the XFL. The funny thing about it is the St. Louis Battlehawks made it to the UFL, and that's the team that I almost chose above everybody. So if I wanted to choose them, they're still here for me. I love Angels, and they have angel wings in their logo. So, I might have to be a Battlehawk now. I don't know, but what do you think about this? When we look across the board and we see Arlington, DC, San Antonio, St. Louis, Michigan, Memphis, Houston, and Birmingham all represented here. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, 3 teams in Texas, really? We needed 3 teams in Texas and not 1 in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what jumps out to me about the league. We needed 3 teams in one state. Come on. Seriously? But I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of rooting interest. I got into DC a little bit last year. I thought they were pretty good. They have Jordan Talmu, who's like probably the best quarterback that's not in the NFL. So I always enjoy watching him play. I think he brings a lot to the game, a lot of excitement, energy, throws the deep ball well, can move in the pocket and get out of there when he has to. So I do like watching DC play. Obviously the beer snake is fun. I didn't mean to slap at it earlier. It's actually fun and cool. I just wish that they were drawing, 30 or 40,000 people at something like this. Yeah. And creating the most giant beer snake ever seen to man. It would be greater if they played in a bigger stadium.
Yeah, well, you bring up a great point, and the point that you bring up here is, how do you have 3 in one state and not 1 in the state of Florida? And the state of Florida, listen, Florida has proven that they can for almost 30 years now, because the Jaguars will be 30 years old in 2025. For almost 30 years now, it's been proven that Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville can all coexist. They can all be around each other. Orlando is that place where you're like, okay, If we don't have an NFL team, then put something else there. Put another pro team there. It makes perfect sense in so many different iterations of anything outside of the NFL, right? When you're looking at the XFL, the USFL, that there was that other league, the AAF, that had an Orlando
Yeah,
team. I mean, at one point, there's two Orlando teams. So
20,000 people at that every game.
right, and so there's. I mean, eventually, I think there will be. I'm surprised that there's not now. And if you're trying to sell something, it's like you're selling Alabama, Texas,
Yeah,
Tennessee, Missouri. I mean in DC. So I mean you don't have outside of DC, which is the Northeast area. You got nothing else in the DMV. You got nothing in the Northeast. You got nothing on the West Coast. You don't have a lot on the East Coast. You're really kind of asking like Midwesterners to get behind this league, and I don't think that was the smartest thing to do.
no, I mean, I don't either, obviously. So I don't know. I mean, this league. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited that The Rock and Danny are still part of it. Don't even really know who's on the USFL side as far as like who owns it, who runs it. I have no idea if that's like just run by CBS or the network or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, I'm excited that the players that are going to get to play have
yeah,
jobs to go to,
yeah.
that they're going to be able to provide for their families this year. Because that's, a lot of, football fans, we don't think of it in terms of, these guys are providing for their families. It's like, this is, they're getting to extend their career, they're getting to provide for their families. Get the family atmosphere of a football team, get the coaching. You never know. They could make it back to the NFL. Gives them another shot. And, it might not be the highest level of football. It might not always be the most competitive league when you're talking about leagues below the NFL, just people being in general interested. But this league has shown that it's going to try. There's many ways to get free tickets. There's
Yeah.
many ways to get discounted tickets. I think all the teams do the same thing. Season tickets, if you want to do that, super inexpensive. You're spending like $100 on a seat for 6 games, whatever it is. There's just no reason not to support leagues like this. And people are so stuck up with, well, it's just not the NFL.
Who
Well,
cares?
nothing's going to be the NFL, but also you don't have to spend $200 for an upper level seat to go see this.
Right, and the thing is, they've tested rules that they can now use in the NFL. They've done different things. Like, this is a league where you might see something before you see it in the NFL. This is a league where it's just, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's professional football. And like you said, you and I know so many people that are trying to make it. They're trying to make it,
Yeah.
and the NFL has so many roster spots. Obviously, it's better than the NBA as far as how many people can make it. And there's 7 rounds in this draft, and you look at the National Basketball Association, and every year there's 60 spots. Only 30 have guaranteed money. The entire second round has no guaranteed money. 60 spots for thousands of players all over the world. Where there's plenty of people that are going to go to the NFL. There's almost 300 picks every single year, and then there's practice squads and all that stuff. But people get, they get. I know so many very talented, good people that just got lost in the mix, not because they're not talented, not because they don't have a good work ethic. Just, I mean,
Right.
people don't understand that some of the really, really good players don't make it because they're on a team for 3 weeks, and then that team's punter goes down, and they drop that running back, who is the third running back, to go and get a punter, and then that running back doesn't fit this system of this one guy because they were going to bring him to this team, but they changed their coach. Then they call another guy, and the guy's like, yeah, we're going to bring you in for a workout, but we already have our 2 guys because we're 3 weeks into training camp. And that's what people don't understand. Like, they're like running. If I just think about like one or two of the running backs that I know, it was like getting a job, having it, making it all the way through, and then getting cut because they needed to bring in somebody else for depth or another position. And now the season's starting, and now you have nowhere to go. But yet, when you get cut from the team, they said it's nothing that you did. You did everything you're supposed to do. You're really good for us. So now that you have these other leagues, the hope is that there's opportunity. The XFL has their own conference inside of the UFL. They're on the XFL side, like I said, Arlington Renegades, DC Defenders, San Antonio Brahmas, and the St. Louis Battlehawks. The teams that were not carried over in the XFL, which had 7 in its latest iteration, the Orlando Guardians, the Vegas Vipers, who were the Orlando Vipers, and the Guardians used to be up north, and then the Seattle Sea Dragons are gone. Let's stick with that for a second here. Seattle, or we've talked about Orlando, but Las Vegas, which you spent a lot of time in, and Seattle lose their franchises in the XFL. Vegas seems to be the right place that all of these current MLB, NFL, whatever teams, NHL has a team there now. It seems like Vegas is the hotbed to go to, yet the UFL went away from this. Seattle's been dying to have more after they lost the Supersonics. I'm surprised that they're not in it too. So outside of Orlando, Las Vegas and Seattle getting cut from the XFL's portfolio for the UFL. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I love Vegas. We tried everything to be able to go out there with Jess Lee last season. I was talking to their front office and trying to get us out there. They were super good too. It's just, it seemed like, and Seattle's the only one I didn't reach out to because that's just way too dang far for us. But yeah, Vegas was great. I thought Rod Woodson, despite getting fired, which I thought was crap, he did a great job out there. They played 3/4 of every game. They just seemed to fall apart at the end.
Yeah.
And they were so close. Their quarterback ends up going to Arlington and leading them to the championship. So I thought Vegas was a really good team, and that they should obviously still be there. I think the XFL should have stood its ground and kept what it had because it had actually played in the cities of the teams, not like the USFL where they were just playing in 2 hubs. And if you're from Michigan, what did you care? They were playing down in Alabama or Memphis.
Yeah.
So now, Michigan's getting their team. It's going to be interesting to see, what these markets that have seen their teams representing their cities but not playing in their cities, how they're going to receive them as the season starts. And yeah, Seattle, another one like that. They had the good atmosphere like the Seahawks have. It was less people, but they still had the crowd noise. And again, a good team. They had Josh Gordon on that team. They played real competitive football. I thought they were, a very talented team, had the fan base, and, obviously not a reason to take them out of there. And I thought the XFL should have definitely stood their ground for their teams because, like I said, they had proven what the fan bases were going to be in every city already.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, when you look at that and you say, okay, Arlington, Dallas, so the Dallas area has the Cowboys, and Arlington obviously being literally they're neighbors. DC has the Commanders, and so the Defenders were there. San Antonio, interesting, having the Brahmas because San Antonio does not have an NFL franchise, but of course San Antonio with the Spurs and everything else going on, and then St. Louis with the Battlehawks in the XFL, having that side, having a city that wanted their team back, right? Wanted an opportunity, wanted to have something. On the other side of it, with the USFL gave up more. The USFL actually gave up, all in all, I'm looking at it right now, 5 franchises not coming in for the USFL. They bring in the Birmingham Stallions, which are in Alabama, the Houston Roughnecks in Texas, the Memphis Showboats in Tennessee, Michigan Panthers, called the Michigan Panthers, they play in Detroit. So you have Birmingham, which doesn't have an NFL team. You have, but it has, UAB. You have Houston, which has the Texans. You have Memphis, which, you look at Memphis, Tennessee, and you're not too far away. It's like the Titans are in Tennessee, so it's like another part of it. And you have the Liberty Bowl. And then you have Detroit for the Michigan Panthers, which have the Detroit Lions. But the teams that you lost the Houston Gamblers. Now, this was a thing that was really interesting with the USFL, is they opted not to carry over the Houston Gamblers, but you have the Roughnecks. So you had 2 Houston, the New Jersey Generals, the New Orleans Breakers. So now you lose New Orleans, Louisiana. You lose 2 teams in the state of Pennsylvania that are avid fan bases in the Philadelphia Stars and the Pittsburgh Maulers. This, to me, there's no Northeast representation. I think what the UFL is missing is that people in the state of New York, my home state, in the state of New York and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, they're going to be like, who's our team? Like, do we all go DC? And so that's going to be something that is really kind of frustrating. I can understand not bringing two Houston franchises. Jay Bird already saying you got 8 teams, and almost half of the new UFL is made up from teams in Texas. You don't need 2 teams in Houston. So, but you lose New Jersey, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. So now the New York, New Jersey area, the Philadelphia area, the Pittsburgh area, the Ohio area, that's all gone. The New Orleans Breakers, that's gone too. So, and Larry Fedora, who I covered when he was a coach for the UNC Tar Heels football team, was down there with the New Orleans Breakers for a little bit. I mean, the UFL gave up a lot. I first and foremost, it's very crazy that there was 2 teams in Houston, that they couldn't find somebody else to take one of these other teams. But the USFL went into the UFL, and the UFL apparently was totally fine giving up the entire Northeast. Very strange to me.
Yeah, no, and that's such a big, just football area in general. Be like, we're just not going to have a team. But I was thinking of something, because you were talking about players and players coming in and how it's all kind of, we talked about Joe Theismann earlier, just kind of tying all that together. A story from the Florida Tuskers 2010. Indulge me just for a second.
Yeah.
So we had Brooks Bollinger, famous New York Jets quarterback, was our quarterback of the Tuskers. You remember. Remember who the backup was? Chris Greisen.
Yes, Chris Greisen. Yeah, because he was really good.
We had Chris Greisen, who's tied to Jay Gruden. He was our arch rival with the Orlando Predators. He was on the Georgia Force.
Yeah, Greisen
he lit up the league for 114 touchdown passes in 2008. 114 touchdown passes in one season. So he's the backup to Brooks Bollinger. Brooks goes down halfway through the season. Chris Greisen comes in. I think we were 3-2 at the time, or maybe 2-3. And we turned the whole season around with Greisen playing quarterback. Greisen ends up leading us to the championship game. And when Joe Theismann shows up to the championship game, the first conversation I hear him having with his team of people, which I'm sitting in the van with them as well, he starts talking about he loves how this quarterback has come in and really shown, like, hey, I can take over the team, and I've got this, and I know the offense, and I'm going to run the plays, and I'm going to make sure we can throw the ball down the field. And he's like, this quarterback's done a great job. And I said, do you know where he came from? And I have a whole conversation with Joe Theismann and his guys about Chris Greisen from the Arena League, who nobody really knew the Arena League guys.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Greisen takes us to the championship. We come up a little short. And where did Chris Greisen end up? He was the quarterback of the Cowboys. Like, he went to training camp with them and was like a 4th or 5th string quarterback for the Cowboys for a good year after that.
Yeah.
So our kicker ended up on an NFL squad, Nick Novak, as you know.
Yeah.
And Dominic Rhodes. We had a bunch of guys from that team end up spending time. James Devlin, Super Bowl champion fullback, was on that team with the Patriots. So you just don't know with these guys, and that's why more jobs are needed, because you just don't know what's going to become of these players, the way that they can perform with the chance.
Yeah, and it's a great point. And, so to me, I would love for this to have kept, and like I said, you don't need to have two teams in Houston. Houston natives, please don't be mad at me when I say that to you. But you don't have to have 2, but if you look at it, like I said, if you look at the XFL, and they end up with 4, but they had 7, and then I just want to mathematics this thing here for a second. So then the USFL, they bring in 4, they gave up 5, so they had 9, but let's just say that they had 8, because you're not going to have 2 teams in Houston. Then you got 15 if you brought them all in. You bring in 1 more on the XFL side, then you have 8 and 8, you have 16, you got half the NFL right there. I mean, if they had kept these franchises, and I don't really, we don't know what the conversations were, but You know, I mean, how do you go to Seattle and go, hey guys, we're going to expand? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. We're finally expanding. This is insane. You're not a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, how do you handle Vegas, Orlando, Seattle, New Jersey, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh? Again, we talked about this at the beginning of our conversation. When you keep taking things out and putting things back in, you know, because I feel like if the UFL really wants to last,
Yep.
you got 8 right now. You had the opportunity at having 16 if you had kept the 2 Houstons and maybe just moved the franchise. So
Yes.
you could have had half the NFL. You cut your league in half. And this is the thing that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would the USFL agree to this if you have 9 franchises? Why would you go to a league that has 8? You got to give up more than half of your franchises to join this merger with the XFL. The XFL doesn't lose but the XFL also, they lost half. They lose almost half. They lose 3. They keep 4. The USFL loses 5. They keep 4. So you punish yourself to join this. I don't know what the business plan is. I don't know what the money is behind it. I don't know, you know, the why. Go ahead.
I'll share with you what I hope it is as somebody who follows wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? So DJ, The Rock, is supposed to be coming back to WWE and hopefully wrestling his cousin Roman Reigns at WrestleMania in Philadelphia is what all the wrestling fans are hoping for.
Okay.
I hope he takes that paycheck, and this is only a 1-year pause for all these cities. And he brings them all back on this one paycheck from WrestleMania. Because, man, like, I really was looking forward to Guardian season. Obviously, you can hear the disappointment in my voice. Like, I was looking forward to Guardian season. Of course, we still have Arena Football and the Predators here in town. I'll be going to those. But I was looking forward to Guardian season, maybe working with them again. Who knows? But hopefully that's what The Rock does with that WrestleMania check.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the wrong thing. I mean, when you're merging, you know, I know that with mergers they try to trim the fat, so to speak, but I don't think this is the fat. You know, I think this is the meat. You know, these franchises were showing that, okay, we can do this in the USFL, we can do this in the XFL. I don't understand. If the XFL is merging with an entire different league just to add one more franchise, and the USFL is merging with the XFL to lose a franchise, to essentially join a league where you had 9 and now you're joining a league with 8, it's like, what are you really doing? Unless it's like, hey, let's get everybody together. Let's try. You know, we got all this momentum with the XFL. We got all this momentum with the USFL. We think fans are going to struggle to watch 3 different leagues, and they're not going to really be in. So if we want to battle the NFL, we have to join forces. That's all well and good. Yeah. But you need to bring these franchises back. I don't want to see Philadelphia and Pittsburgh suffer. I don't want to see New Jersey suffer. You know, I want to see this come in. And I want to see, gosh forbid, upstate New York get a friggin' franchise. I mean, they said that, okay, you got Buffalo, you got the Bills, but the Giants don't play in the state of New York. The Jets don't play in the state of New York. Upstate New York is like, bro, just like come and see us. And the Dome, think about the Dome and what the Dome could do if they put this in. It's like you got 50,000 seats. There's going to be a little bit less when they put the new seating in. But you don't have to sell out a 100,000 seat stadium. You could get 40,000 people, 35,000 people, 30,000 people, and it's going to look full. It's going to look nice. It's going to look grand. I could cover a professional sports league in New York. It's in the middle of the state. I mean, I feel like the whole, like, we can't have an NFL team, Dan, where we just don't have the parameters and the ability to do. Okay, well, then bring in a UFL team and utilize that, and then put that on the screen, and maybe that'll push people to come to, because if the UFL is selling out the Dome, but Syracuse isn't selling out their own Dome with their own players, then maybe that'll push something. I don't know, but to me, that would be fun. It would be exciting. We know that Buffalo, I mean, it was electric. It was insane in Buffalo, even if you brought a team to Rochester or something like that. But I feel like there's a need for the Northeast. There's a need, and for goodness sakes, there's a need for the West Coast. I didn't grow up on the West Coast. I've never been all the way out to the West Coast. I've been to Arizona, but I'm going to say this to my West Coast people, to my listeners, my avid listeners, readers, viewers from out on the West Coast. I love you all. Y'all deserve a team. There's no representation. The Pac-12 is dead, and now they're going to cut you out of the UFL merger. I mean, that's just some dirt. So I feel like hopefully this was like, let's join forces instead of like us taking a bite out of the NFL and then you taking another bite. Why don't we just like work together, become a bigger Pac-Man and take a bigger bite out of this whole thing and create more opportunities? But eventually, man, these franchises got to come back, or they need to expand somewhere. The only thing I don't like about this merger is that they had to lose by gaining. And I didn't like that part.
Yeah, I mean, and as they go along, you're going to see these new markets. If one of them doesn't go well, they'll cut it out, and then they'll move a team. But then they'll move a team. So then you lose again. You lose, but you gain, and instead of actually growing, when you hear about the expansion teams in new leagues, like you want to just hear about the expansion team with the others staying. So that way it's actually growing, and that way there's money behind it, because as somebody who's worked in those leagues, and I think we've talked about this 100 times, you have those jobs and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Like, we'll see if my paycheck bounces or not. Like, the old USFL, they talked about the race to the bank, as far as like, you get your paycheck, but you better like bank on the next block from the stadium so that you can get it to clear, because it's a race. The first 15 clear, the 16th guy is check bounced.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, that's the thing, and you and I've talked about this before. We've discussed this before, and how there is that issue with money in these leagues. We got a comment coming in. No one's battling the NFL. The UFL just needs to carve a niche in the football fandom world, realize their role, and hopefully pull a profit. Yeah, what I mean by this, because I said it, was what I'm saying is that there's life for more than one league. And maybe the XFL and the USFL, we're seeing that dividing football fans into three, it would be better to put them into two. Not saying half are going to the NFL, half are going to the USFL or XFL. What I'm saying is, when you have three leagues going on, it's hard to pay attention to them all. And with the XFL and the USFL overlapping, maybe they thought, let's just bond together and let's make football feel more year round. And if we put all of our resources together and all of our money together and all of our wonderful people together, and we take the best of the best and we make a board of both of these, then, we can really run something that is going to create opportunity. Because that's what it should be about. I understand everybody wants to make money, blah, 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 whatever. We all die and go to heaven, hopefully heaven, with nothing in our pockets. So, that's what people fail to realize. Everybody's broke in heaven. Like, nobody has change. Nobody's got money in heaven. So, hopefully somebody at the top of this whole thing is thinking about the players. I know Rock talked about, who's that 54th guy and all that stuff, and him trying to make teams or whatever. So, I mean, you and I, that's why we're in it. That's why we care about this. We've always been about, helping people out and trying to get players visibility. So, ultimately, that's the thing that I hope comes from this. That's why I'm fighting for more franchises. But as long as we can fill, if we got 8 right now, and I'm gonna do old math. I'm not gonna use a calculator. I'm doing it right now here. So this will give us 424, at least bare minimum 424 extra jobs that the NFL is not giving. So who can argue with that? And with the, with each of these teams, you have, a president or a CEO, you have a GM, you have a head coach, you have a coaching staff, and then you have these 424. So we're talking about 500 plus jobs that are going to be here. Plus you need custodial work. Plus you need people to run your concession stands, and you need your ticket people and your account executives and your sales people. So, we're talking about an extra over 500 jobs, bare minimum, coming into the professional football world in America. And when we talk about more jobs, when I eventually run for president, and I continue to fade back to these conversations and remind people of this, that jobs are important and creating more opportunity is important. So, and if and when I run for president, Jay Bird's going to be on that cabinet. Just know that, folks.
Yes, sir.
So, before I let you go, Jason, really quick here, we do a thing called the Ingredients to Success every Tuesday. And the Ingredients to Success, proudly presented by the wonderful people at Avicoli's on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, right down the street from Liverpool High School. We have our Liverpool Warriors monthly broadcast there. We celebrate with the Warriors. You get to know the student athletes, the coaches, and administration. You can literally walk from Avicoli's to campus and back and forth to Liverpool High School. So make sure you go out there and support them today. The ingredients to success for the UFL. What are the ingredients to success, in your opinion, for this league to not survive, but to thrive?
Yeah, marketing, local marketing. You've got to do everything you can. Get feet on the ground, get the billboards up, put signs on the stadium, because most stadiums people pass them 100 times a day. Let everybody know. I think that's top of the board, number one. You got to have people you can trust making the decisions at the top. You got to have people who know and have done this before, because it's all new and different now. We're in a digital age. Like it's all different. We got to have apps. We got to have everything to do with that. You got to have the right players. You've got to have the guys that are hungry to be there, the guys that want to be there, not the big guys who's just looking for the paycheck and that's it.
Yeah,
you're looking for that guy that's hungry, because that's what's going to make your team competitive. And you got to have the same thing in your front office. You got to have people who are there who advocate for those guys, who are there to tell those stories, because there's so many. I mean, every guy has a story. Every guy has worked for UPS. Every guy has worked, taken tickets, whatever it may be. Every guy has that story. You got to tell those stories and make sure that you've got a great storyteller there. That was my job in the UFL, was just telling the stories.
Yeah.
And, being there to tell the story of a guy like James Devlin, and the next thing you know, you're watching him on TV winning the Super Bowl. I'll never forget that day. That was just a day that, like any other day. And you're sitting there telling the story of a guy that 3 years from now, he's going to be a 2-time, 3-time Super Bowl champion. So you just don't know who you're dealing with in these leagues. You never know who they're going to become. And to me, it's just exciting just to be part of it. So, like I said, I would do anything to be a part of something like that again. But I have fun with what I'm doing now too. So I'm good either way.
I mean, look at just college football. I mean, I think we're going towards something that I had prognosticated over 2 years ago. Is I think that Division I football is going to have 3 levels. I think there is going to be an SEC, maybe SEC Big Ten, but definitely SEC in the top level, maybe the Big Ten with them, then the rest of the FBS in level 2, in level 1B, and then in level 1C would be the FCS. It seems like all signs point to the fact that college football, and this is, a conversation for another time between you and I, but it seems that college football is more than on its way to that. I have said this repeatedly. If Clemson and Florida State get into the SEC and Notre Dame goes to the Big Ten, then the SEC and the Big Ten will essentially have all the products that they need to play their own seasons, have their own tournaments within their own leagues, and then play the SEC champion versus the Big Ten champion for the rights to be called the national champion. And I don't think people can really fight with that. The Big Ten's move to take West Coast teams literally brings the Northeast, the Southeast, the South Middle, the Midwest, and the West Coast all into a league that the SEC and the Big Ten could form together. And just so y'all know, they would have 34 teams as of right now to start things off. In the parts of the country that they haven't touched are the parts of the country that haven't vied for national championships. So essentially, I think that that's coming, Jay Bird, if we want to talk about levels of sports.
Yeah, it's another thing. It's all about money, brother.
It is all about them dollars. So with that being said, Jason Lucas, always appreciate having you on the show. My brother in arms, my dude. XFL USFL merger becoming the new UFL. We remember the old UFL. I like the logo, but it was more colorful. And so the history about that and more. A lot of great things coming up, and maybe an opportunity for you and I to work within the connection to the UFL. We shall see what comes about here. But as always, Jason, thank you for your time. It goes by way too fast. I love you to pieces, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Please give my best to Kristen, to Gracie, to Carly, and to the entire family down there in the great state of Florida.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
Care.